And welcome back. Well, now we were focused on the second part of this week's recording, the first of, I might as well call it Season 5 because technically it is, unless you want to call it 4.2, then that's your way of thinking about it. But we do have the 2025 Magic Weekend at St James's Park in Newcastle for the Betfred Super League, starting off with the Lee Leopards and the Catalan Dragons.
This one could be a juicy matchup, I believe. Both clubs have been playing reasonably well, although Catalans are further down than what I thought.
They've been slow to start.
They've
I
been
think that's
slow,
fair to
yeah.
say. They've been slow to start, but they've been peeling off some wins now. Some hard fought, some easier to do so than others.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they've been doing it as well, without the fact that they were bold enough to let Artur Moore go to Hull KR partway through the
That
season.
was a very big move.
And the fact that they haven't had Sam Tompkins for most of this early stages of the season either. He's been battling injury.
Mm-hmm.
But Guillermo Aspiro Bichet. That is just a name that just screams rugby league.
I was going to say, you don't want to say that 10 times fast in French.
Well, it's just the perfect football name, isn't it? Like, you can imagine a French commentator or a Spanish commentator? Commentator? No, commentator just going there and if he was playing out on the wing and Tompkins would be like, and then go, Aspiro Bichet! That's sort of the way it works. That's that Euro style. Oh, you'd go in the corner with that.
Absolutely.
But he's actually been playing some good footy coming in and without Tompkins and after getting rid of Artur Morg. The big thing for Lee, they might welcome David Armstrong back. Of course, with the Super League, they don't name their squads until 24 hours away from kickoff. We always pick times where they don't publish them to begin with anyway.
Exactly, which is a pain in the ass for us. But anyway, we make do for what we can do.
But he is expected to feature for Adrian Lamb, as well as Frankie Holton, who was also missing in that big win over Salford last when they ran in 28-6 over the Beleaguered Devils.
Yep.
Not expecting either Yamala Hamley or Tessie New back. Maybe not Keenan Brand either, after he virtually got pulled out in the Warner. But nevertheless, it's an interesting time for the Leopards, and especially the fact that Catalan have sort of struggled out of dummy half. First with Ben Garcia moving there, and then they had Ulrich da Costa in, back to Garcia here after having him on an edge. But I think the Dragons have found a groove.
Slightly have found a groove. I mean, there's still a long way to go. Plus Challenge Cup.
Well, yes, Lee and Catalan both, I think, in the Cup semi-finals.
So that could... I mean, it's an extra game or games that they would have accommodated for, but still, if they play a full-strength size, which no doubt they will, could mean some big-name players could be out injured, but that's future down the line, which I think next fortnight, the Challenge Cup?
Yeah, 2 weeks.
2 weeks, so we'll worry about that when it comes to that.
Big one, because Lee will be able to field Joe Offengawi for the first time this year. It's widely expected he's going to feature for the first time at Magic Weekend. And you're going to throw up against his former teammate and former Tongan teammate, Tavita Pangai Jr.
So you might see a few punch-ups?
I doubt punch-ups.
I'm
surprised Pangai Jr. hasn't even been yellow-carded yet.
He's what?
He hasn't been yellow-carded yet.
What the hell? Has he changed?
And I don't think he's been red-carded either.
Blimey.
So
absolutely blimey.
That's the interesting thing right there. And look, you'd want to honestly hope they got a bit of a blueprint in place. Ace. Key matchup here, it's going to be Gareth O'Brien versus Luke Keary.
Oh, absolutely. Both very experienced.
And the chief play, maybe Lachlan Lamb, Luke Keary. I think I'll make that a little bit fairer error on that one. But you saw what Keary did in that big win for the Catalan Dragons over Huddersfield when Tommy Makinson ran in that hat-trick, or was it against Salford? No, it was against Salford, that's right. It was Luke Keary had 3 try assists, or 2 try assists, depending whether you read your eyes or the Super League stat sheet after the game. But nevertheless, in those 2 appearances against Huddersfield and Salford, Luke Keary had his hand and his boot in everything.
Oh, absolutely he did. And he showed his experience. He guided that team around the park that day, and it paid off for him.
If Derek Beaumont, the owner of the Lee Leopards, wants them to be the greatest show in Super League, this could be the stage to try and prove it. I mean, Lee in the top 4 or 5 at the moment, but Catalan are hunting down fast.
Lee are third on the
Lee
ladder.
are third on the table. Dragons coming to town, right there. It's equal points with a lot of clubs in a log jam at the bottom end of the table at the moment. But I think even with Offahengawi there's still a couple of powerful players they are missing, particularly the likes of Tessie New. When you throw up in contrast, Remus Smith, Nick Kotrick that you got to mark up against.
In the come from behind win against Wakefield, they were down 18-8 Catlands at home to Wakefield, who are below them on the ladder by a couple of positions.
Well, Wakefield have demonstrated they can really throw themselves into a match, and they've really been playing some good footy, I'll say, on that.
And was it in the Golden Point? Correct me if I'm wrong. Golden Point win for Catlands. I know Catlands ended up winning.
Actually,
20.
it was Golden Point. It was locked up at 20-all, and then Catalan scored the final try to win 24-20.
On the 81st minute.
Yeah, that was
as Mason Leno got put in the sin bin for a yellow card.
I got to go with Catalan on this one. I think the last start Lee had was good, but against Salford, anything could qualify.
It's Salford. Come on, be realistic.
7-12, the Dragons win. I'm backing Tommy Makinson to bag at least a double on this one. I think this is the exact sort of stage you need to get your best winger into the game. And if you can get him good ball and get him out jumping the likes of AJ Taus on that side of the field, and I think Andrew Badrock out there as well on that side, definitely the way to go. I think it will be the Catalan right edge, Catalan 7-12 on that one.
I'm actually going to go the Leopards to win that game. 1-6.
Well,
Leopards? Yeah, Leopards 1-6.
Well, speaking of Salford, they will be in action on day 1 of Magic Weekend against the current league leaders in Hull KR. Hull KR are taking a home game out to St James Park. No Tanganoa for them. He has been ruled out with a HIA, but they should get, I believe, Joe Burgess back. But after the performance of Jack Broadbent, it'd be very hard to try and find a spot for Joe Burgess.
Broadbent had, a double?
He had a double. Mikey Lewis clutch moment. That's the big thing. Mikey Lewis has been the linchpin that's held Hull KR together this whole time.
Surely he's leading the Man of Steel award.
I think Jade Connor was up there, pretty close. Mikey Lewis might be in there as well.
But Hull KR, they're on a whole nother level this year. They're currently on top of the ladder.
Where would you like to start with Salford exactly? What has gone wrong that you want to start with?
Dollars, financial crisis, new owners, stadium at some point late last year, early this year, their future stadium, like Home for us, was uncertain. We're looking for a new head coach. We've had to release top quality players like Sneed, Watkins, Laffey's retired, Dion Cross is now gone.
Chris Atkin is going.
Yeah. We might as well just bloody...
Nene McDonald, he could still be going. No one knows what he's going to do when he comes back. And he goes back to Britain. He's currently out here in Australia for the birth of his child. All the last reports confirmed.
Yeah, he has got his first child, has arrived in the world, I believe, or very close. Yeah.
But you put the absolute best Super League has to offer at the moment up against the absolute worst in Salford.
I wouldn't say worst. There's one team left. At least we've had a win, unlike Huddersfield.
You beat Huddersfield.
Exactly.
That says everything about Salford. Look, Jaden Nikarima, he's probably been the only good spark they've had left. Isan Masters probably up there as well. Useful weapon, even though that most of your top try scorers and point scorers have probably either departed or will depart in the future.
Yep.
But you know what? Honestly, jokes aside, I gotta feel sorry for those young Salford lads in the academy and the reserves that have to step up to the top flight at the worst possible time and constantly be ridiculed for the performances that they have no control over, yet they kept getting demolished week in, week out.
In saying that, though, it's good game experience for them. There is a positive out of that. Yes, I know they'll get demolished week in, week out. But it's good game experience for them.
If you're getting scores 7, 8, 9 tries to none or 2 a week, that will take a psychological toll.
Oh, absolutely, it would be.
Whether or not they actually stay in the game long term and develop into good first grade players,
well, that's
that's
if
a
Salford's
long term consequence if Salford don't pull their bootstraps and their financial books in order.
Well, I was going to say, and that's if Salford still exists for that to happen.
Look, I think this is just a foregone conclusion at this point. We don't really need to say anything more about it. It's
No.
Hull KR.
First, second, last.
21 plus.
Oh, easy.
Yeah, it's. I'm sorry. It's
no,
just.
don't be.
It's a Hull KR 21 plus win. Salford would need God on their side, but even then, God could not save them from Mikey Lewis and the Robins.
Let's just look at this though. The points differential for Hull KR on top of the ladder on 16 points, positive 135. Salford on 11th with 2 competition points, minus 277, the worst in the league.
Which is why it's a foregone conclusion.
Hull KR 21 plus by country
They
mile.
would need a virus to hit the Robins camp where Artiel Morg, Mikey Lewis, Tyrone May, Jared Warrior-Hargraves, James Batchelor, Elliot Manchella, Michael McAlorum, Sam Luckley, Jai Whitbread, Oliver Gildar, Peter Hickoo, Jack Broadbent.
Can we just say the whole first grade side?
Yes, if a virus came and took out for that one weekend all of Hull KR's top line talent, which won't happen.
No.
And of course, the Robins, the only thing I will honestly say, they might try and get, Salford might get lucky on, is the part where Hull KR are coming off that emotional come from behind win in trying circumstances, but I don't see that happening.
No
The
way.
Robins will keep rolling at the top of the ladder, and they will go into the Challenge Cup weekend practically unaffected.
Yeah, agree. That's just an easy victory for Hull KR. Salford might as well just not turn up at all.
Now, an interesting clash here. St. Helens against the Leeds Rhinos round out day one. And right here, the speculation Brad Arthur could welcome back Brodie Croft, Andy Ackers, and Cameron Smith.
Geez, 2 ex-Salford players in there.
That is the word at the moment, that their first choice standoff, dummy half, and co-captain could all be fit for Brad Arthur this weekend for the Leeds Rhinos. Even after Ash Hanley got whacked with a red card in that game for something that very rarely do you see coaches and teams agree on something. But in this instance, the red cards has united Hull KR and the Leeds Rhinos to say, abso-bloody-lutely not.
Absolutely.
What do you make of that?
Circle the date that it happened on and say 1 year since everyone agrees with something. Because it doesn't happen very often at all. And, debacle.
Yeah, it is a bit of a mess for the Leeds Rhinos on that front. They had Hull KR on the ropes for the longest time, but Mikey Lewis just said, it's free real estate.
Yeah.
Then a 40-20 and a try later, it just sort of came to an end. Meantime, Saints haven't gotten off lightly after getting down by Warrington either. Harry Robertson, 6 weeks out with a quad. Joe Batchelor, hamstring, 2 months on the sideline. They say Conrad Hurrell's still closing in on a return, whilst James Bell and Carl Fell are still a long way off from returning. The Saints' attack has been a big problem for them. I think the decision to start blooding George Whitby in at the expense of captain Johnny Lomax has had a negative impact on St. Helens. I don't know whether that's born out of frustration or they're just trying to unlock this attack that you would say, since the formidable years, has not been the same standards they've had since the formidable years.
It definitely hasn't been the St. Helens sides that we've been used to over the years. When they, 4 in a row? Yeah,
Yeah, that's why I say formidable.
Yeah.
I emphasize the 4.
They were close at half time with Warrington.
Without
but-
Mark Sneed. That's the big thing.
They were down by 2 though, but then ended up only scoring 4 points in the second half.
And the fact that Mark Sneed went down in that game and Warrington still went on to win.
Yeah,
Incredible.
absolutely incredible. Yeah, but is not having Lomax in the side the problem?
Well, that is hard to say.
Because they've got new halves combination because there's no Lewis Stott and no Johnny Lomax where they're absolutely killing it for St. Helens.
Well, they weren't necessarily lighting it up. They were still competitive.
You get what I'm saying though.
Yeah, I get.
They're
what
one
you
of the
understand.
better half combinations in the Super League.
Well, considering there's only 12 teams, it's really saying something. It's not like the NRL where we have 17 teams and only a few really stand out. At this point,
That is true.
you look at Saints, it's sort of like 14 points one week, 14 points another, 4 tries. Whitby couldn't convert it on most of them. Ended up 32-18 down to the Warrington Wolves after Good Friday loss to Wigan.
Yeah.
And Leeds have been in games. They've done some good performances on their own end. Mind you, 2 of those were against Salford. They were collectively, the scoreline read at 52-6. And they got nilled when they went to Catalan on their first trip of the year.
Yep.
So they still have problems, but they had a couple of good performances as of late. Of course, held Huddersfield to a solo try. I almost put 30 on. They were in it against the Robins, which is always a good benchmark. Like, it's always good, I believe, to be up there with Hull KR. I know Eddie Hemmings would say you never write off the Saints, but I'm going to give it to Leeds. I just think, well, if they get those, regardless if they don't get those 3 guys back, Lachlan Miller, Jake Connor will do a fine job of guiding the Rhinos home, and I think it'll be 1-6. Close margin.
Saints and Rhinos are equal in competition points. Saints are just better off with their points differential. They're 2 of the 4 teams that are locked on 10 competition points, others being Catlands and Warrington. I am going to say, for this game, the Rhinos win this one 7-12. It's a very flip of the coin game, but there's just something about St. Helens this year that's just making it hot and cold.
They're in the pack. That's what it is.
Yeah.
St. Helens are part of the pack. They can't, and they're not close to Wigan or Hull KR at the moment, who are where they were in the past.
Yeah. And they're not used to it.
Yeah, well, something will change eventually.
Oh, eventually.
Meanwhile, something that probably won't change is Luke Robinson's blood pressure, as the Huddersfield Giants will go up against Hull FC this weekend. Of course, the Giants 30-12 loss at home to the Casper Tigers. Hull going down to Wigan after being blown off the park by a certain Bevan French and Junior Nsemba in the second half.
So that was always going to be a classic game, the whole FC Wigan Warriors game. Both teams are doing very well this season. Now it would have been.
Well, I got to give it to John Cartwright. He has really turned the expectations we've sort of had for Hull FC around in the matter of 3 months, because
absolutely.
I honestly had Hull FC dead stone last. You just looked at the leadership. You just thought they brought a whole host of players in on that roster, and you just thought, how is this all going to work out completely? And it turns out you get John Asiata in, good linking ball, all playing, and then Herman Esiesi basically got possessed, and suddenly he's become a try-scoring freak. No, dead set. Herman Esiesi is going to be amongst Hull FC's top try scorers.
Absolutely.
More than the likes of Tom Briscoe, Zach Hardacre, guys who have been up there on try scorers. Even Jordan Rapiner. Herman Esiesi would have just as many tries as Jordan Rapiner does.
Who's only gone across there this season?
Yeah.
Yeah, this season. And, yeah, I didn't have Hull FC as high as what they are at the moment on the ladder. And they are proving everyone wrong.
All right, I just looked at the Rugby League project just now. Tom Briscoe actually has 5 tries, and so does Lewis Martin. So, but Herman Esiesi has just as many tries in league as Tom Briscoe, with Herman 4 tries. The Herminator. And that's a nickname, isn't it? The Herminator.
The Herminator. That's a very good nickname.
So, yeah.
But would that still stay if his performance dramatically changes,
So
though?
you got a front rower who at this stage is a top 3 try scorer at your club, with Lewis Martin and Tom Briscoe each sharing out 5 tries.
Yeah. Who would have thought that?
Incredible. The Huddersfield Giants, or what can we say about the Huddersfield Giants that hasn't already been said or demonstrated out on the pitch?
Yeah.
But the good news, they have not suffered an injury in the loss to the Casper Tigers. But they're still missing George King, Aidan McDown, Benton Rogers, Liam Sutcliffe, Tui Lolohea, and Harry Rushton, all with injury.
And Huddersfield, what? They were there or thereabouts last year in the top 6 playoffs contention?
No.
Or was that the year before?
They ran third in 2023, and the last 2 years it's sort of been downhill heading into this one, where they have not won a single game since they let go of Ian Watson. Or pretty close to it. Their results have gone even further down, even after replacing Watson for Luke Robinson.
Yeah. See, 2 years ago, what a big difference 2 years have made, though. They've gone from, what, 3rd down to last, and probably relegated.
In 3 years. And it's the same thing. They tried Gagai in the halves. It didn't work. They put him the fullback. He scored a runaway try against the Tigers last week. But their defence is just as bad as Salford's.
If not worse.
It's just as bad.
Well, let's just see, though.
And even with the way Hull FC got banged up against the Wigan Warriors, there's a bounce back waiting to happen there. And Will Price is just complementing the rest of that spine very nicely with Cade Cust and Aiden Caesar, and with Amir Bura, a dummy half. They're playing a lot better than what they were last year. They've already gotten as many wins as they did last year, and I think if they can get through the second stage of the season the same way they've started, I'm not ruling out playoffs at this point. I'm going to say Hull FC win 7-12, strength of the forward pack alone.
Well, Giants have got a somehow better points differential of negative 168. So that's better than Salford's, but haven't got the win. But let's just say they're not going to win this one. They are going to lose. I am going to say that the, drum roll please, Hull FC to win. 21 plus.
21 plus, Hull FC.
That is no surprise.
Well, we'll see how that one pans out. Now, another of the Las Vegas rematches. We have the Wigan Warriors taking on the Warrington Wolves. Warrington, they have no halves at this point.
No.
They lost Mark Sneed in the win over St. Helens. They haven't had George Williams. I think he's still out for up to a month. Danny Walker has proven not to be a starting half, whether standoff or scrum half. And there's still no Kai Taylor-Ray, who is out with a hamstring injury. Matty Ashton, who scored a hat-trick in the win over Saints, is also out. So Aaron Lindop, he's actually broken his jaw, so he's unlikely to feature either for the Wolves. Sam Burgess will have to be relying, if fit, Ollie Leyland and Leon Hayes, the first choice number 7 for Warrington, and the boom utility they picked up from London Broncos.
Yeah.
If they're both fit too.
Bit of a dilemma, isn't it, Warrington, eh?
And you're expecting them to go up against the second-placed Wigan Warriors with Bevan French, Jay Field, Jacob Wardle, or Jake Wardle, if you prefer it that way, strike back rower and barnstorming sensation Junior and Semba.
Yeah. Can you imagine with their halves combination if they had Sneed and George Williams at Warrington?
Oh, if that was the case, it'd be a 1-6 or it was a toss-up. Here, there is no toss-up. If you lose your best 2 halves that aren't available and you're putting up against a man who has won a Man of Steel already.
Yeah.
Jay Field, who is a Man of Steel contender
Again.
and been so the last couple of years.
Absolutely.
The incumbent England halfback Harry Smith, who has pulled the strings nicely. It's one-way traffic. It's Wigan 13-20 winners.
Oh, absolutely. I think I tipped Wigan. Yes. Wigan. I'm actually going to be a bit generous and say 7-12.
Well, you're giving Warrington a lot of credit if they can pull that one off.
Yeah, I know, but you got to take a punt somewhere, don't you?
And finally, we have the Castleford Tigers hosting Wakefield Trinity for the final game of Magic Weekend. The visitors could be boosted by the return of Jake Truman after a back issue has kept them out of the side. Ollie Russell and Matty Russell both remain sidelined, whilst calf concern for Renoff Attorney and a arm issue for Caleb Hamlin-Uele could see them checked over after returning from that Golden Point loss to the Catalan Dragons. Meantime, the Castleford Tigers could receive a boost if, by all reports, they can get Chris Atkin over to the jungle or on a deal.
Which will probably be more than likely.
The only concerns for the Tigers, Jeremiah Simbikin will not back up after the win over the Giants. And Sam Wood, the captain, is thought to be okay after coming off at a period in the match. But there will be no Jason Gary for Castleford there. But this could go down to the wire. They already met once at the DIY Kitchens. It took a Wakefield miracle.
I was going to say, that was only like 2 weeks ago. That was back in round 8.
Yeah, that's the way the Super League fixtures work. If you play the same opposition twice in 3 weeks, that's sort of considered normal.
Yeah. But yeah, so I was going to say, Castle were leading that one 12-0 at half-time. They're going to lose 13 points to 12. So this clash could produce something. And being the last game of Magic Weekend, could we see some magic?
I'm not honestly sure if we are going to see any magic from this one. Wakefield, they'll be hurting after that loss in Perpignan, but Josh Griffin was probably the best on ground for Trinity in that one.
Mm. But then Castleford come back off a decent win against Huddersfield as well.
Which, again, the standards, opportunities defensively. Wakefield will have I think Darryl Powell will take a lot of good lessons out of this result. And you got to remember, Danny Maguire has yet to string, as the Castleford head coach, any decent runs on the ball. Wakefield are more capable of that and have demonstrated that. And this is a Wakefield side that, unlike their last time they were in the top flight, they still have been punching above their weight. You want, as much as we are expansionists and we want to see the UK rugby league look a lot different to what it is now.
Oh, absolutely.
You have to acknowledge what Darryl Powell's done in a short amount of time. Incredible from where Wakefield started.
Yeah, absolutely. They have been. And look, they're sitting, 9th on the table, whereas, 2 years ago they were in the Super League?
2 years ago they were
and they were
none for 13.
Dead last.
They were none for 13 in their last start in Super League.
And they got relegated back down to the Championship.
Yeah, but then, of course, new ownership came in, the upgrades to their home ground, and then...
That sounds familiar.
But this one actually...
New ownership with Lee?
This one actually pays its players on time.
Well, yeah. No, I'm talking about Lee. Going from last to relegated, back in, new name, rejuvenated. Yes,
it's not a new name. Wakefield Trinity have been Wakefield Trinity for the longest time.
Yes, I know, but I'm talking about Lee. But you can see the similarities when they come in.
I think there's enough ammunition for Wakefield to get up over the top of the tie. Tigers with... It's a West Yorkshire derby. It's a good way to end, but I think Wakefield will get the job done 2 from 2 to this point over Castleford 1-6.
1-6, Wakefield. It's going to be another very close game like it was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, we'll see how our sides have progressed since then. But on that note, that is full time here from us. If you like this video or the one we did just earlier on, make sure you leave us a like, hit that subscribe button, and click the bell to allow for notifications so you never miss a week of rugby league action. All our tips will be posted up on graphics before the kickoff on Thursday on Facebook, X, and on Instagram, #SideChatYT. Hope you enjoyed our return, and we hope to keep this regular content going. Maybe some extra things. We'll see you next week. From Mark Hendry and Connor Marcellus, we'll see you next time.